Welcome to the Packaging Therapist podcast. I am your host, Jessie Schwartz. I've been a packaging engineer for 20 years and currently the founder of Strategic Packaging Partners, where we are obsessed with creating strategic approaches to packaging to enable growth and cost savings in the CPG industry. My goal in this podcast is to discuss hot topics in the packaging space to enable you to make strategic decisions for your business that impact the bottom line and take the chaos out of manufacturing. Join us for technical discussions about packaging, and let's make the world of manufacturing better together. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today I am joined by Erin Keller of Capsule Design, and we are going to talk all about using a design agency to get work done for your organization. When should you use a design agency? Some of the things that you should consider. And so I'm super excited you're here, Erin. Go ahead, introduce yourself, and we'll get right to it.
Great. Yes. Excited to be here as well. Jessica, this is Jess. I am excited about being here for sure. The Capsule firm, we are 25 years old as in August. And we wrote a book many years ago called Design Matters Packaging, which led to a tremendous amount of packaging, both here domestically and internationally. And we do a lot of work on the front end of strategy and the research and understanding what's happening in the word section, and then designing to that when it comes to our design process. So
Fantastic.
A little bit.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about telling a brand story. There are so many different options out there when people think about getting, okay, I want a new branding, a new look, but then I don't know how to create something that will resonate with consumers and not confuse them. And I mean, it's just really, when you think about your brand image and what your packaging will look like for consumers, there are just so many things to consider. And so in terms of using a brand agency in the role of storytelling and how packaging can convey a brand's values and story, say a little bit about that.
Yeah, the best thing, there's a lot of different ways to approach it, but I've found that finding the gaps in the category, unless you're inventing an entirely new category, finding the gaps, and the gaps may form in the area of personality, and may form in the area of visual language, and certainly, hopefully, they form also like the base product that you're putting in the package itself. So as you're looking out in the world and looking to find a firm to partner with, the broadest view you can take as early in the process as possible is definitely helpful when considering, where are you going to fit in? What are you going to design yourself into as far as a spot in a category? There's a lot of factors, and that could be, competitiveness of the category, how much innovation going on in the category. There's some categories that just get very stagnant, right? People aren't even innovating at all in a certain category. Those can be right for opportunity for someone to come in and do something dramatic and change and create a new perception within your product and package. It'd be very cool.
I think of liquid death when you say that, where it's like even category of water. Do you guys have any other examples?
Liquid death, and the other comparable I would give is Smartwool, which has been a client of ours over the years, where they came into a category that was, socks. It's boring to a certain degree, but they came in with a softer wool sock made from merino wool. And once you put it on your feet, it feels like a luxury for your feet. And so the design of their package was done in such a way that you could get the sock out of the package and put it back in the package after trying it on. If you were to, that sounds gross right now. You're like, what? Other people could have their feet in my socks? Well, probably not, because they're so comfortable. You put them on, you do not take them off again. And it was, I think, a pretty impressive innovation for them. Plus, they have the little Smartwool guy, and I designed a beautiful package that connected with people, and they grew dramatically.
Yeah, and you say something interesting, though, like even if someone were to take it out of the package just to see the color, because Smartwool socks in particular have a different design often throughout the whole sock. So let's just say you wanted to take a look at the whole design. What you're saying is you could get the socks back together without it looking disheveled or disorderly. And I think that's an important aspect of design that you might want to consider. Like, what are the traditional problems of current design or a problem that you anticipate? And then how can you leverage agencies and different schools of thought to come up with a solution that solves that problem?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely seeing the bigger experience that someone's having. It also fit really nicely if you think about where they went to market. They went in ski shops.
Mhm.
So you would, if you ended up at a ski shop and you hadn't skied a lot, you end up there in your big, white, sports socks, and then they said, well, you should really try on a pair of like knee-high socks because you're in ski boots. It'll be more comfortable, and your feet won't be destroyed, or your shins won't be destroyed. They're
Mhm.
kind of young. You try them on. Ski shop gets you to buy one, and of course they're so comfortable. You buy 10, and
Yeah.
it's good for the ski shop, great for Smartwool, and it really fits in those that don't sell. They just put back in the package,
Mhm.
which is I think pretty rare, and sell them again. So
Yeah.
it was a really really impressive little innovation, and really not is understood in its full form because you think about it, all of their socks were Swift tack, so you could not
Mhm.
try those socks on and you could not see what they feel like on your feet. And a lot of things especially clothing, we get to try on. It's socks
Yeah.
have been or weren't that burned to this smart home automation. So
Right. Pull it off the shelf and then it was yours and buy it and it was yours, like sort of thing.
like,
Mhm.
right.
Okay, cool. So then, you have these ideas of what type of product you want to offer to the market, and there's just so much that goes into coming up even with the idea for the product in so many facets, and everything is constantly changing. And so when do you usually engage with people in terms of how far down the product development cycle are they? Um, because you need to have kind of something that you can design to, but then where, if it's hard, there's no like mile marker for like now you engage with a brand agency. So tell us a little bit about how to identify the right time to consider an agency getting involved in helping out.
Yeah. It definitely, it depends on the agency you're engaging with and what their full scope of capabilities are. That's for sure. There's definitely a correlation between the complexity of the challenge and how soon. The more complex, the sooner you would want other partners involved. Almost like any other product development process, the same principles and the same, in many ways, stage gates apply in the area of
Mhm.
packaging. So, yeah, I'm reminded of like a couple of different examples of clients. One was a chocolate. All they had was a concept of what they might design as a chocolate. And they brought us in very early to help them actually design the chocolate form factor as well as the package and all the surrounding things and the brand, everything. And
Cool.
so that's a very early stage in that.
Yeah.
But and I think they can attest to this. It was an incredibly successful launch of a
Mhm.
chocolate that could have ended up in just a bar form, which there's just plenty of bar
They're
form
boring.
chocolate, right? Kind of boring. You got to
Mhm.
do something different, and we did together. So it is definitely dependent upon the complexity, which can come from the category itself, what you're looking to
Mhm.
accomplish, right? What the innovation is, um, but generally skewing the earlier the better. That's my view. Because some people look at it and go, "Well, if I engage them early, it's going to cost me more money."
Mhm.
But if you're engaging a good partner, you're reducing the risk of bringing that more product to market. Hopefully, you're increasing your odds of success. Hopefully, there's a lot of other good math that goes with engaging that partner. Um,
Yeah.
that makes a good reason to bring them in earlier versus later.
Can you give us an idea of the range of services? So I think, if you're going out to look for an agency, there's really like, what questions do you even ask in terms of services? And some offer some, but not the other. And explain a little bit more about specific services that agencies um, often offer, and then maybe some more of the strategic services that you've seen that not everybody offers, but you should ask up front, like, do you have capabilities in these spaces? So you don't get too
Mhm.
far down the line, right? And realize, oh my gosh, now I got to hire somebody else because these guys can't do, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, we look at it as we get the basically three rings. We got the core of what Capsule can do inside a capsule, and then that next ring, which is our set of partners like you,
Mhm.
and in which we turn to them for those other things that we don't do. We find it's much better to be just totally transparent, almost radically transparent about what we can do and what our partners can do.
Mhm.
We, of course, take responsibility for our partners. So if our partners mess up on us and on our clients, we take that and we make the correction. And we like to say we're the throat to choke, essentially, if something goes wrong. But and I hope that other agencies out there do that kind of
Mhm.
thing where they're just as honest as possible because it's more painful later if you have to explain, oh, no, now you need blah. And, experienced clients who've done this before know all the pieces are just generally the pieces that are involved.
Mhm.
Structure can be that gray area,
True.
and testing a structure, right? Can be like who does it, where do we get materials, and some of those things you can't possibly know if you've never done this before.
Mhm.
And so part of our role, I think, collectively, is educating as we go, so they get the best they can get. Because we all want, they want a successful store. They want something that sells. We want not only the paying, but also the case study, right? The story of having
Mhm.
done this great thing together. So
Yeah.
it can be very much aligned if you think about it that way. And bringing the best partners to the table for that second rig is a critical thing for us because we can't possibly do everything. There's no way. It isn't. I don't know if there's any firm that can. You're
Right.
always relying on it. We just had a partner ask us for consultants for EPA and an FDA consultants. And we're like, wait, you never been asked that? Okay, we went and found our network. We had two really good partners who do that all the time. We've been talking to. We just didn't realize that they'd be great partners and said to them, and they loved it. And so just a matter of making sure you've got a good partnership network.
Yeah.
It's a healthy thing. So
I think that's a great point. So, what type of network does the agency have in terms of ancillary services or adjacent services that you might need, and what does their landscape look like? Because I think in the design agency in world in particular, you guys are networked with so many different people because you're handling the way the product will show up on the shelf, but then you're connected to all the other aspects of the graphics, right? The packaging, the regulation, just everything, and even how it sits on a shelf, and what does the retail landscape look like? I mean, is it going to be in fluorescent lights all the time? Have you tested your product against that? Can you even have a window? And all these like really thoughtful technical questions that you ask, and it's just you can't think of everything, right? Even the brand owner can't think of everything. And so that's why it's important to have an agency that can help you ask the questions that will prevent huge disastrous mistakes. And I remember a story that you told me about a vodka that you guys worked on once.
yes, they had originally come to us and they said, and this sometimes happens. If you're we're gonna do a design contest. You're gonna design some concepts. We're gonna have two other firms design some concepts. And we said, no, we don't do that. We ended up working on a relationship, but at the time, they had done some concepts with a manufacturer. And it was a crystal manufacturer. So it was premium vodka, should be in a crystal container of some
Absolutely.
sort. And like, oh, that totally makes sense, right? As a piece of the conversation, right? You go to the crystal manufacturer who has a designer on staff, works in crystal, and he creates this incredible bottle that's like 2 feet tall. And then, of course, will never fit on a shelf ever. There's no shelf it will fit on, not even a bar that will fit on a shelf. But I'm like, okay. And then it's made out of lead crystal. The lead, of course, bleeds from the crystal into the vodka, of course, killing your customers sooner than you'd like, which is rather unpleasant. And they said, well, we're probably not going to go that route. And so we ended up, working with them and actually designing a beautiful bottle that worked out really well for them. But it's a challenging area to consider. And I empathize with clients because the landscape is cluttered and cluttered with a lot of challenging, paths that you go down. And you have to find people you can trust
Yeah.
that are going to go on this journey with you. So,
Right. Well, and to your point, the time and the effort and the money spent on designing a lead containing bottle could have been spent other places too. So, it
yeah.
sounds like just having conversations anyway earlier on to understand, okay, here's where we're at. And maybe there's no engagement at the moment, but at least capabilities and when to engage so that mistakes can be prevented and you can design into something that resonates with your clients. Um, and do you guys do any studies around different designs and how they are perceived by consumers? Because there's just so many different looks and feels that you can have in a brand image, whether it's just the artwork itself or it's the artwork plus the packaging. Is that something that you do, or the I guess the landscape of design agencies offer?
Yeah. I don't know. entirely how many firms do the full blend, but we definitely
Mhm.
do that research piece. I have a research background, so I'm always fascinated by anything where we can do the testing after we've done the concepting, with all kinds of different ways to test. Of course, the moment of truth, that intersection between the human and the package at the shelf or at the moment of decision, is the purest form of test. And the purest form of research is observation. So observing that interaction happening and seeing what people see and more appropriately, sometimes what people don't see.
Mhm.
And we did this years ago with a brand that's now owned by Cody over Cross and Sally Hansen, are the consumer brands. And we observed that was probably 60 or 70 different shoppers shopping the aisle, figured out how they behaved, to figure out which things they picked up, which things they noticed, which they
Mhm.
didn't notice. And these little things, you can find all kinds of nuances of behavior that can be really valuable to you as a brand owner. And then, of course, yes, the mixture of structure and graphics and how are you being as distinctive as possible on the shelf,
Mhm.
without breaking the tank, and going off the charts from a custom structure design.
Mhm.
Trying to put in that happy balance, the critical thing. But the testing is a more and more people get the importance of that and see that and do that. There's all kinds of different creative ways to approach it too. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's that last step in, reducing the last step of risk of bringing
Mhm.
something to market. Right. And if people don't know that there is, then you just look up the Tropicana story and that'll tell you how
Right.
much risk is involved. Yes, we
Yeah.
all know that story.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think, now e-commerce is such a huge market and it's only growing. And so you really have two spaces that your product needs to show up. One is potentially a store shelf, but then the other is in e-commerce. And so talk a little bit about the considerations for both environments for the product. And sometimes they go in both spaces, right? But like some customers or some companies decide to start with e-commerce and going D2C, and then they might get into brick and mortar later. Some go straight to brick and mortar. So there's just different considerations potentially for where your product will be.
Mhm.
Can you help us
Yeah.
understand that?
Yeah. There's sometimes I think it's definitely a misconception of like, let's go e-com. We don't have as much expense on packaging. We can do a one color package or just a two color package, right? And we can make it cheaper because it doesn't matter as much.
Mhm.
But you can make an argument that then the only thing you've got is when the package arrives and so in front of someone and in their formative relationship with your product. So the structure becomes more important. That experience and what people call unboxing experience becomes much more important. And so it plays a different role, but I don't know that it plays a lesser role when it comes to econ versus at the shelf. It's just a different context, and there's all kinds of different contexts to design something too. Right? You can say we're going to design this for this context of ecom. You can design it so it wins at the shelf. You can design it so it wins at home. Right? We talked about method and the method
Mhm.
original bottles and their beautiful shape and form. That was designed to sit in the home and be noticed and talked about at parties, guests over, and everything else, as a great way to be introduced to this new brand, this new beautiful form factor, and versus being designed to sell hard for shelf, which is where their competitors were, and their competitors were more than likely, as dish soap under the sink, right? Not visible
Right.
to anyone. People don't want branded items, screaming at you from their kitchen shelf. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and especially in that commodities space, it seems like dish soap, for example, it's just a race to the bottom, right?
and
And how do you come up with something that's not part of that story where method did just that, right? Where the form of the bottle, the look of the bottle was unique and it was like you picked it up because you're like, "Wow, what is this?" It's right here with the dish soap, but it doesn't look ugly. Um and it's a neat way to leverage um yeah, both the product and the packaging and where it's really working the hardest for your brand, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you can. And Eric Ryan and that team were very good at finding, categories that were old and
Mhm.
stagnant and had just hadn't had a lot of packaging innovation. Good people, good team members, good people at those organizations doing great work. But,
Mhm.
after a while, you just kind of get into a pattern. And then someone looks at that and says, I see a different thing here. I see there's a possibility of breaking into this. and having something that crosses a bunch of subcategories within cleaning, and launch something called Method, which is analyzed, obviously broken and did great things, and caused a lot of pain and suffering to brand managers at big corporations. They went, oh, they did that.
Wait a minute.
Yes, yeah, it is. I have an old fascinating story that is a friend of mine went to school with was at Target, and he was the first one to bring in the laundry detergent by Method, that it was a 3-in-1 concentrate, which was the first time a concentrate came into Target, and he gave them the opening to the aisle for their Method concentrate, and it launched. He didn't realize the timing, but it launched a week before he was supposed to be visiting PG. And so he said, I got pulled into so many offices about how I was going to destroy the category. and how painful that was, and how many conversations were around what he's going to. But what it did is it pushed the others in the categories to meet that and to innovate the category, right? Which is commendable for Method, and they got their proper share for that. And they continue to innovate, right? It's somebody has to do that, otherwise we get stuck in a rut. Because there's a society as a whole to do, and give them the credit for doing it. Nothing wrong with P&G and all that they've accomplished as an innovator. They are phenomenal in so many ways, and but everybody can be disrupted if they get a little bit stagnant. So
yeah, absolutely. And so we talk a little bit about, okay, how do we show up in a unique way on shelf, get attention, and actually be picked up, right? How does that change when you think of e-commerce, where you're shopping on the web and you can't pick anything up? And honestly, I think a lot of companies don't do a great job of selling their product online if it's new or different, or it has like a function. Because you get some flat images, for example, but you still can't fully understand what the product is intended to be used for. So say a little more about e-commerce and how people can help their customers understand their product better.
Yeah, this is definitely the place where, and that's where great packaging blurs the line between product and package, right? You can't really, it's hard to distinguish the two, and the two become very much married, and it's important that they work together, because you've got product imagery and package imagery. And some have got like minimal, like hardly anything there, which seems fraudulent in many ways, because you're like, I can't find anything about this. That's all I got is one package to look at, or one product. And then some have gone exhaustively over the top, and you just have so much to look at. And there's a lot of room to grow, and to be just deliberate about what is someone looking for when they come to this particular product. So you give them enough so they can go deep enough and make the purchase, but not too much that they get overwhelmed. I think we're in an interesting stage when it comes to e-com, that there are plenty of opportunities. The space is basically free, right? The digital space to upload things. Basically, you can upload anything, as many things you want. And you got videos, or you're rotating stuff, which are all good in different forms and different settings. But all of a sudden it becomes too much for a consumer, right? So there's a happy medium there to get someone to the things they need to make a decision. Part of that's the package in many cases, and part of that's the product, or a blend of those two things. But being thoughtful about it, and not only for the sake of the sale, but also what it conveys about your brand, that someone thoughtfully considered all the things to get me to the right thing, and hopefully also reducing returns. Because returns are an environmental disaster when it comes to e-com, right? You only have shipping one box to one household, then you're doubling that on the way back, versus the number of products you buy at a grocery store and bring home. You are the last mile of that transportation, perhaps. These and all that. It's not you, right? It's horrific.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Especially like in apparel, I think about, it's wild.
Well, that's scary.
One of the things that I like the On Running shoes, and they do a good job of displaying their shoes online in a way that I can look at it and rotate the shoe to see the subtle style differences between two different models. For example, I know we had a conversation about shoes, um, but I like a certain fit, and I can tell by looking at the shoe if it's the right fit or not, like the toe space, for example. But then I wouldn't want the same functionality and imagery showing up for a toothbrush, right? That just would be overkill and unnecessary. Um, so having that guidance through the process of how do we show up, what do we present, and how do we present it is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. That you remind me of when it comes to shoes and all the details you can handle that or not, and purchasing the wrong pair of shoes because I've recently done that on a brand that I love. And so I'm in this place where I don't want to return them because I still don't like them, but they're not the shoes I wanted, but they don't want to purchase another pair. I know this got this conflict going on that I haven't resolved yet. There's also an interesting packaging story in Allbirds. When Allbirds came out and they have their kind of origami package because they were D2C or all online originally, which I thought was, I keep looking for people to solve the shoebox problem,
Yeah.
right? There's like the cereal box problem, the shoebox problem. There's all these boxes that are too much space for the product inside. They're shipping a lot of air and other things. And I thought they had an interesting solution to that, this origami effect. And then once they went to retail, they got rid of the origami. So I'm like, oh, I should
Bummer.
probably bummer. And, you know, it's one of those that I don't know that it'll ever be solved. I keep trying. I keep looking for the right opportunity to solve that.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is a tough one when you get a certain, and like it's the entire system. So you'd have to
Right.
change the system in order to change the box, which is
Mhm. It's
probably
true.
not going to happen, right? Which is also part of
Yes.
your packaging efforts, right? Yes, not yes. Somebody
Yep.
might, yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of on the heels of that then, we think about sustainability, um, shed some light on how the approach to design can incorporate sustainability, as you're sorting through a lot of noise in the industry and what sustainability really means. I think it gets confusing, and you really need experts to guide the conversation, whether it be your designer or a packaging engineer. But just how do you Sherpa people along the sustainability path?
Yeah. It is structure plays like your team. You played a really big role in that, obviously, and then the most balancing that most efficient structure versus efficient from an environmental point of view versus functioning and performing what it used to perform, right? Where you're getting into the intensity of the materials, the thickness of the materials, how things come apart or don't come apart. Can be rather critical. Materials is the other big one that we talk a lot about. There's more and more really interesting opportunities in materials, especially on the bigger brands and having a look at the material and scaling that material, kind of like RFID with Walmart, where they made RFID a thing. These big
Right.
brands, they have scale and they can make a movement happen in a certain category. They can make something real. And I think honestly, I think it's an obligation of the bigger brands to explore those things and try to make them real. And then on our part, just to advocate for that, right? Advocate for what can we do to be more responsible? Looking at the broader system of like the origin of life, where did the materials come from to produce the package, all the way through where do they end up, right? Do they get back into the system, recycled, or do they go into the planet in some way? All those things are the Cradle to Cradle, Will McDonough's book, a huge influence on my life as far as thinking about that and understanding the broader system of things. Very, very critical. And we write about that in our book, the Design Matters packaging book. I tried to actually, and this is funny because with the publisher, I tried to put, because we didn't get a lot of good responsible packages from our, exploration of samples that were put in the book as case studies. And I tried to say, we should just put a blank page and I just say, when you find one, please paste it in this book. And the publisher's like, we don't do brown pages. Well, we just got to do that.
I'll pay for it.
It shows it. And I'm like, okay, again, right there. So yeah, it was, but it's a absolutely critical part of it. And not just for the perception of it or the messaging part of it, but for just the general responsibility of thinking about landfills and waste of resources and all kinds of other things.
Yeah.
So, because every brand is moving along a spectrum. You may start like at the worst form of plastic you could possibly imagine,
Mhm.
but make progress. Put that also on your innovation cycle when it comes to your package and your materials and your structure. And if it stays on the same cycle, you can innovate that along with the product.
Right. Yeah. Can you
Being
give any
improving.
examples of when maybe you started with a less sustainable approach, whether it was the material selection or maybe even the amount of material that was used and a way that, you guys have changed to be
Yeah.
better?
Yeah. The probably the best one that we have, which is the most iconic example, was our Patagonia stuff that we did, which they had. So they had base layer, and if you knew the base layer package, it was basically, and that's one other word to the rest of us. It was the hang tag, and basically what was a sushi roll of a product, two rubber bands that held the hang tag coming to the product. And so it came out as looking like a sushi roll.
Mhm.
And it would display them that way. So it was kind of cluttered and it was on the shelf. It really wasn't shoppable or in the traditional
Mhm.
sense. It wasn't easy to navigate. And then commending to, kudos to Patagonia. They knew that they had packaging in Europe and Japan that was in boxes. That same product was in
Mhm.
boxes and boxes with windows, so it's plastic and paperboard, and not very responsible. But the Europeans and the Japanese didn't want people touching their underwear.
Mhm.
And so it had to be in
Oh.
some sort of kind of container. And so that's what so that was going on over there. But,
Mhm.
us here, we wouldn't see that. And also, pretty much every garment, every piece of clothing comes in a poly bag that shipped from somewhere, which is a rather horrific part of the fashion industry as a whole.
Right.
Now, many have gone after it and tried to solve it. I think a couple are getting pretty close to it, or at least have maybe even broke through
Mhm.
to do this. The solution that we came up with was it looked like more packaging because you didn't know if you only thought they went from a sushi roll to this Octagon box, which you can find on our website. We thought, well, they had more packaging. Well, in fact, they removed a whole bunch of packaging from the system. And some of them had packaging that's behind the scenes you don't even see because most people don't see the packaging.
Right.
Unless, of course, you work in a fashion or in a retail store and then you see all the
Mhm.
products in the house. And that is definitely the worst part of it. So moving from that to a paperboard that's very much recyclable,
Mhm.
very much an elegant design solution and increased sales. That's the trifecta. You can
Yeah.
reduce material usage and improve the package, make it more handleable.
Mhm.
That's a great one for sure. So,
Yeah, and it's a unique design too. It's not just
well,
your standard box, and
yeah,
like you said, it increased people interacting with the product and even buying the product. So that's the ideal.
yeah, yeah. We
Mhm.
even had someone copy it. I won't name the brand, but I don't want to, disparage them in any way. But as I said, we went to a presentation of another prospect and we sat down. I was showing that case study and the guy looked at us. He said, "I'll be right back." He left the room, came back in, and they had copied exactly the Patagonia Octagon box. And he said, "I don't know how you did it without glue because not having glue was part of the responsible thing to do." And he said, "We couldn't figure that out. So we just used glue." Like, well, you kind of missed the
Okay.
point. We did miss the point a little bit. But, yeah, it was very funny. Anyway,
Mm.
yeah.
Isn't like imitation the highest form of flattery or
It
something like
is.
that?
It is. That's what
It
we
also
did.
just doesn't feel right.
No, I know.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. No, it definitely doesn't feel right. But some Patagonia is not very to use. So I think they commend people that at least are moving in the direction.
yeah,
If
right.
they're as activists, they want people to at least make progress.
Mhm.
Like that, if everybody can, everything will be improved for sure. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. All right. Well, we've talked about a lot of content here. Good stuff around brand agencies and their role they play in brand development. Some of the watch outs and some of the questions to make sure that you ask in terms of what types of services or what type of a network does the agency have to kind of fill in the blanks where you don't have someone in that seat. We talked about a lot of examples about how packaging impacts the brand and really brings it to life, but then there's also some watch outs you have to make considerations for, such as you can't poison your consumers. Um, and so really I think the main point of all of this is just as you're going through a brand development or even just a SKU development cycle, that you bring in the right partners that are going to kind of open your horizons up to start thinking about things differently. It also has some unique and maybe even challenging ideas and designs for you to contemplate, right? Because a lot of times our brain is kind of singular focused, going after a goal, but then there's so much going on in the world around us that we miss it, even if we try to see it, just because of everything else that all the balls that we're keeping in the air and that we're juggling. And so I think it's imperative to make considerations for how do you include people who are going to help you think in new and different ways as you're going on this journey, so you end up with that final product that you're proud of and that it was thoughtfully designed. So I
Mhm.
thank you, Aaron, for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, Jesse. This has been great. Very fun, as our conversations always are. Really, really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me on, and great conversation. And I look forward to the next project we work on together. So,
Fantastic. Yeah, and then I'll put, Aaron's contact information and capsule information in the show notes, so if anyone wants to learn more, they can do that. Thanks, everybody.
wonderful.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you found the content helpful, please be sure to share your comments with me by leaving a review so that I can keep the topics coming your way. If you haven't already followed me, click subscribe on your podcast app so you get notified the next time we release a show. If you have packaging issues you want to talk about, contact us via our website at www.strategicpackagingpartners.com and click on the Contact Us page. Thanks, everyone.